mi gente y bienvenido a otro episodio del PRGDA Videocast con Manny y Gabi. Manny's in the background. I don't know. Yeah, if you hear her screaming, let me know. But today we're going to be having a shorter stream. We're going to be having a little fireside chat with some local developers. Now, Coradi's doesn't feel too well, so everyone wish her well. So that means that she's not going to be able to join us. If we're waiting on someone else, but in the meantime, we have Gabe Arniella. Amiella. I'm going to say Amiella, and he'll correct me afterwards, like when he comes up. Get Gabriel, get up here, please. Don't leave me alone here. We need a little bit of Gabriel supremacy in here. Hey, there we go.
Hola.
Saludos, Gabriel. Un placer.
Saludos. Igual, gracias.
Oh my God, I'm glad you're here. Now I don't feel alone. Now there's two Gabriels here that can bully Manny again. Little by little. Listen, I don't think you know this, but my personal goal for the PRGDA is to fill it with as many Gabriels as possible, so that way eventually everyone is a Gabriel. Do you hear that? Do you hear the booze?
Not just the org, like the whole world.
Thank you. It's a hive mind. See, I told you it's a hive mind. Like we all just think collectively the same thing. When Samuel comes in, he's gonna be an honorary Gabriel. It's fine. It's gonna be good. Pero sí, mi gente, we have Gabriel. Okay, Gabriel, how do you need to help me out here. How do you say Armiella? Is it Armiella?
Manny tiene toda la razón.
God.
Arniella.
Manny tiene toda la razón. No, I don't. If you're gonna be so uppity, I want you up here with me. Otherwise, shush from you. All right, my God, this man. Pero Gabriel, all right, let's get into it. Right, this is a fireside chat, so we're just gonna talk a little bit about who you are. So tell us, who are you? What do you do? Like saw to give people already saw your name and saw your title of senior video game production manager. And so I'm like, I'm curious to hear what you do and tell me about it.
Sure. So I guess I'll start at present. So I do games product management, mostly in the free-to-play space, but right now I'm at Mythical Games, which is a company that's building a platform to enable Web3 technologies to kind of combine and augment that traditional free-to-play space. So that does mean NFTs and blockchain and all that stuff, though I don't think it's any secret that that's not exactly a message that's resonating with gamers right now. Before this, I was at Niantic, so working a little bit on Pokemon Go, Transformers game that I was working on got canceled. And before that was part of this Marvel project that Coralie and Sam and I were teammates on. Half the design team was Puerto Rican, which you don't find often.
Let's go.
But it was rad.
That sounds fantastic. I just want to jump into it then. Tell me a little bit about that history of like, when did you join that team? When did you learn that it was half Puerto Rican? I need to hear estoy como la abuelita, esté así como que, mira, mijo, dime cómo qué fue lo que pasó. Eso está bueno, yo quiero saber.
Bueno, te lo digo. I was taking some time off. I was working on my side project, indie game that I developed with an engineer and a partner who is a writer. And then, I joined Niantic doing economy design, which economy design and product management and free-to-play games is pretty close together. It's all about, are you going to be able to create the collection depth? The amount of time needed to build a collection is going to be harsh enough that some people will monetize, but all players kind of have access to the same stuff. Well, depends on the methodology of the publisher, but Niantic was very focused on equal access, regardless of being a payer or not. Okay. I joined the team. Sam was already on the team, kind of as a general gameplay designer. So we were collaborating a lot on the system of how POIs work in this game loop. So in Pokemon Go, the Pokestop is equivalent to the POI, point of interest.
Mm.
And we wanted to make that a little bit more interesting, make it something that players can put agency into deciding what content is at specific points on the map. And then I had a lot of spreadsheet stuff to do. Economy design is the spreadsheet heavy side of design.
I'm still curious. Do you still use Excel, or is there another completely different program you use?
It'll be a little disappointing. It's just the Google spreadsheet.
Yeah. You know what? To me, that's close enough. The Google Sheets and Excel are just like fraternal twins. It's like they don't seem that different to me.
Yeah, they were born from the same.
Yeah, same. Yeah, exactamente. So
and then Coralie joined the team. This was all right before the pandemic lockdown times started. Like I joined the team in October. I want to say Coralie joined in December 2019, or maybe even early 2020, and she joined as the UI UX lead. So, all of the things about how players interact with the app and fulfilling those user stories. And that I'm not part of that team anymore, but
that's fine. But you were there for enough time, and like that's
close
what
to 3
I want
years
to
at
know.
Niantic.
Oh, sí.
Yeah.
Está hablando como si, como que ya no soy parte de eso. Like, ya fue como que, brother, oh, Jesus Christ, production. I heard something fall, and I was like, is it behind me? Pero quiero saber un poquito más, ¿verdad? De como que eso fue algo. Let's go back a little bit, because I feel like it's important for people to know who you are, like not just as a career, but also as a person. Because what I saw from your description was that you were in what is GA Georgia?
GA is Georgia, the States.
Okay, good. I'm not too okay. Gracias. Whew. I was like this close to being like, I think I'm right, but I don't know.
So yeah. So I'll say right now I'm in Los Angeles. I've lived here for about 8 years, and I did grow up in Atlanta, Georgia, after being born in Miami. My parents are both alumni of UPR, Mayagüez. So my mom grew up in Mayagüez. My dad actually grew up in Cuba, and then
oh my God,
through the airlift program, ended up in Mayagüez. Met my mom there, and then they moved stateside to go to grad school and set up the family in Georgia.
Wow.
I studied economics, went to Georgia Tech, which is a state school there, which if there's anyone who's contemplating college or graduate studies, it's like a great piece of paper to have. You will meet a lot of people that honestly, like a lot of the bones of what makes games fun, Georgia Tech is really great at that, except maybe art. It's not a great place to study art, but like marrying the skills that a lot of engineers or business-minded folks have at Georgia Tech, physics, animation, all the different engineering degrees there. I think it was just a good environment to get into this mindset of like not just being a gaming fan while there, but also thinking about making games. That being said, it took me a while to get into games. I went into a more traditional like economics route, doing pricing algorithm stuff out of college, and then eventually got my first job in games, which is not a typical way to go, was being like a corporate business intelligence guy at Activision Blizzard.
Wow.
And from there, I'll say straight away, like the corporate gaming life is not for me. The corporate life is not for me. So I basically started at like the highest level view possible in the gaming industry. Like, oh, do you want to buy Candy Crush? Yeah, this guy go over and do this, to wanting to learn more and more about making the games and still having that like high level outlook of what is this game going to do for the audience? Why is it important that we make this? But I like being mixed in with designers, with art, with engineers,
Sitting down to be part
actually
of the
making the
process.
stuff. Yeah, that's what I find fun.
Oh, I feel you. I tend to feel like I'm the enabler. Como que I might not constantly come up with the ideas, and I might not be the one to constantly be the one where it's like, hey, it's good, but I'm the one being the multiplier, going like, what's your blocker? What's your blocker? What's your blocker? Get rid of it. And it's just like, let's keep going. Let's keep going. I want to make your life easier.
Yeah, I like those kinds of roles because then when you have like the first build that feels good, when you have that first time where you're like actually seeing users enjoying what you've done, you feel like you have, made a lot of it happen. Even if you're not necessarily the one coding, the one
Making the art.
drawing, animating,
Mhm.
because I'm not the creative guy. I'm the experience honer, but also can we convince people to pay to make this game? I think that's really my sweet spot lately.
All right. So from the UPR to then Georgia to then you're born in Georgia, and then from there you go into Blizzard for economics, and that's where you start your gaming journey. That's fascinating.
Activision Blizzard. And I'll correct you. I'm actually born in Miami.
Ay, perdón, mala
Like
mía.
any good Puerto Rican.
Ay, Dios. All right. Así se empieza la pelea, pero you're completely correct. I'm curious, ¿verdad? Porque eso parte de eso, being like a first, because you're basically your parents were first generation immigrants, like se pueden ver como que de tu papá a Puerto Rico y después tu familia completa a Georgia. So like, what's that perspective like for you, siendo como que a child of those first generation immigrants?
I think it actually has a big impact of how you get into gaming, because I think like if you're 20 now, it's a lot easier to convey to parents like there is a career where I work in games, and it's not like what you'd immediately assume as like, oh, I'm going to be a League of Legends champion. And now I think parents understand that there are real jobs, that it is a sizable industry, that it's brings in more revenue than film and TV. So I think that my parents, when I was going into school and talking about what to major in, like the idea that I would end up applying, econ thought to making games would have like exploded their brain. And so, and I'm totally that generation where like every video game thing was a Nintendo, like it was a creation path that we didn't really have a good picture of. And with democratization of platforms and free to play, and now so many more people can have exposure, and now my parents are playing games. Like I think that we really have changed the perception, as opposed to like, I'll just say my dad was like, you're gonna be an engineer. And
ingeniero o no, like sí o sí, like no, eso es lo que va a hacer.
Y tuve que pelear con ellos a cambiar mi maestría economía.
Oh my
like
God.
Literally an intervention, because I wasn't going to be an engineer. I was going to be some,
guys, compromise. It starts with
dude.
an E. Please, like give me something. Come on.
Yeah.
Engineering, economics, like mi gente, like no one's gonna tell a difference. Like they're still gonna hear E and be like, okay, that's good.
They're still gonna be like boring. But I mean, I think that's one thing I learned was like, what you do in college is only going to have impacts to how you start out with your career. Like you can really make your career anything you want it to be, as long as you take your time and hone your craft and surround yourself with people that are going to make you better at what you do.
I think a lot of our viewers are gonna relate to that experience of just going like, Like, I don't want to be an engineer. I don't want to be a scientist. I don't want to be a doctor. Like, games seem kind of cool, and parents going like, no, no, no. ¿Quién te dijo que podías pensar así?
Mhm.
Regardless of I've seen, regardless of location, I feel like that experience has become quite universal for the last 2 generations that have gotten into games. So then
Yeah. Yep.
I wanna get into a little bit of like the economics route, and like within like how what was that like what was economic design just like the application of your knowledge to games? Was that like something like what was that journey like?
Pretty much. So it was, like 2014 was when I was starting to, interview to get jobs at gaming companies. And it was frankly like the catalyst was I was going to move to LA. And
Wow.
then I started to see like, oh, there are a lot of, job opportunities that don't exist in Georgia when you go out there. And I think it's even more interesting now when more of the studios are open to, fully remote work.
Mhm.
To just like have access to these opportunities is a huge thing that I wouldn't have had coming out of school 15 years ago. And an interesting thing that was happening was first of all, League of Legends was starting to get like mainstream, like, oh, esports is going to be a thing, attention. And then also Netflix was making a lot of waves in the analytics world, talking about how they were like using user behavior data to make a model spit out like, oh, you should go make orange is the new black. Well, and people were starting to think about using, data science to inform entertainment decisions.
Hmm.
But then the other big news story was like Valve was hiring the former Greek finance minister to be their in-game economist, and they were starting to say like, oh, we should take these analytical types to build virtual economies. And that was
Mm.
where I started getting interested and, interviewed with Riot, a few other places, ultimately landed at Activision by kind of taking this story of how I was using real world socioeconomic data to build automated systems to, price hotel rooms or like buy vehicles at auction to distribute.
Wow.
And like Activision was kind of asking themselves the question of how do we take these big box paid game experiences and start making incremental revenue in games like Call of Duty and Destiny, and um, like they had some success
Mm.
already with Hearthstone, but free to play was totally new to these big publishers at that point. And
Oh.
this combination of you can use data and analytics to automate the running of your economy in an open world RPG started to become, but what about the incremental opportunities in a free to play game? And how do you engage that audience and keep them discovering new content and new ways to progress so that there's, for better or for worse, the unlimited spend that those publishers were targeting. And, within a few years, you had Game of War and a bunch of just
Yep, a
ludicrous
bunch of knockoffs.
examples.
Yep. Lots of things just trying to like get as much money as possible. That was a I just took like a it was like a Google course of like mobile games business fundamentals, whatever. And that was a lot of what was being discussed was like integrating like monetization into your game loop to like and seeing where it is that you can actually get these like where in these interactions in this game loop you can monetize and get your users to spend money on your game.
Yep.
And I feel like and what you're talking about is like kind of like the start of that. It was like right now I just took a course on it, but you were there when the companies were just starting to go like, mi gente, esto parece como buena idea. Why are we not doing this? Like, why is Valve kicking our ass? All right, let's go, mi gente. Economists
Mm-hmm.
now, all of them in here.
Yeah, Valve. I think King and Supercell are the best examples in the West, but Asia is
It's rampant.
100x better than us at that. Um, now with games like Genshin Impact and I mean, frankly, like League of Legends and most of Riot's portfolio crushes it in Asia. That's
Yep.
a different consumer.
I was a League of Legends player for 8 years. That addiction runs deep in here. It's why I play TFT now, because it's a good entremedio of normal League of Legends
Yeah.
and not League of Legends.
Not play League without going blind.
Yeah, exactly.
I almost got back into League last week
Aw.
after watching the Players series.
Yep, with Worlds. No.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Te está igual que money. I'm having to convince everyone to just like don't touch it. We left for a reason. It's fine. If like do TFT at least. TFT
Yeah.
is calmer. Está solito. You against the world. No one to blame.
No stress.
No stress. Just watch your favorite champions fight each other. Like that's 10 out of 10. You get the same serotonin. But then so I wanna dive in a little bit now that we've reached the Activision Blizzard stage of the conversation. Where we've reached the Activision Blizzard phase y después eso llega poquito a poquito a Niantic. And you had a full Puerto Rican team, like a half. I corrected myself. A half Puerto Rican team. What was like? When did you learn that? When you got on the team, and like what? How did that make you feel?
I think it was the first day I was sitting next to Sam, and we were like 5 designers in total, and 2 of us Puerto Ricans, and both Puerto Ricans that grew up in the States. And we were kind of at like starting Me Too movement really strongly, and I have to say Coralie is one of the most effective people I've seen at like, are people going to see themselves in the game, and do we enable the game's structure to support us to give people flexibility to, not feel like they're, that one brown avatar to the far right, but instead like really feel like they, can call the shots and, see themselves in the game. And also with Marvel IP, it's kind of a good, it's a better IP to work with, because a lot of you think about X-Men, like it's all about equal representation at the core of the metaphor. And I think also Niantic in general was a place that, we will never get over the discussion of like inclusion for accessibility for those who can't walk. But I think otherwise they definitely want to make games that are representative of the whole world, and regardless of ethnicity or race or socioeconomic position. So it was awesome to still be in 2019 when we could be in a room and just kind of like free form talk about key things that we wanted to build the foundation of this game as, because we haven't talked about like in between Activision and Scopely. I also worked at, Activision and Niantic. I worked at Scopely.
Yep.
And Scopely is a seriously good publisher, but we weren't exactly having conversations about, representation and
inclusion.
How are we talking about the, the social narrative that's happening. It's very much just like get the game out as quickly and as good as possible to make a return on investment. So it was a real breath of fresh air. And I think what also made it fun was that Sam and Coralie were particularly involved in leadership of the enterprise resource group for Latinos at Niantic, the Latinx group. And
Nianticos, I think.
Nianticos, exacto.
Yep.
Like, and I've thought about this a lot since I haven't been going to an office regularly for 3 years now, that like what's really valuable about a workplace is the community. And it doesn't necessarily need to be in person. It helps from time to time, but knowing that you have people that you can just kind of like, you know, unfortunately, a lot of bad stuff has happened. And times when you can feel like you have someone that you can just talk to really vulnerably there. It's
Having
really,
a safe
really a
space,
big
having safe
hug.
individuals there, feeling the support even in moments where it's like, oh, that wasn't good, and then having people in that environment to be able to go to.
In terms of the creative process too, like, I mean, we've all felt it in a production schedule. Like, you are up against time constantly. And when you're a designer, when you're an artist, you have engineers that need your stuff downstream so that they can get to work. And like, I think in particular on a design team, you feel like you are the bottleneck before the game really starts getting built. And frankly, like, when you're in a room of designers, it's kind of a democracy until a creative director makes a call. But when you have enough of a critical mass, you can filibuster. You can say, like, no, I don't want this to be in the game. And if there's another person to, say, I see their point, you will impact the direction of the game.
That's a fantastic. I love that you used the word filibuster there. That was so. I already seeing the internal dynamics in my head. I'm like, oh my god, that's a fantastic.
So, I mean, I encourage everyone, like, even when you don't have that critical mass, like,
speak your mind.
Speak your mind. Like,
yep.
If you feel like you're in an environment where someone's not going to listen to your opinion, like,
saying it won't make like, whether you say it or not won't make a difference. So at least say it, so that way the people around you can be like, yeah, okay, he knows. He knows what's happening.
Yep.
That's fantastic. Wow. What was right, because we were supposed to have 3 designers for this conversation, right? And I feel like would have been a great a conversation to have when it comes to like each person's individual like how working together led to like working on this product. But like what was some of that experience that you were having like as an economic designer throughout that? Like what are some like learnings that you took away from that? You don't have to get into specifics, but just like how did that feel?
Sure. So, I mean, unfortunately, what I say may not totally reflect in what the game ends up being.
Yep.
Because
Totally
I've now been off the team for almost 2 years. But especially when you're kind of early stage, like, there was a little bit of learning about, like, not letting all the other capabilities weigh me down. Like, I think, like, wanting to solve the entire puzzle instead of just like being the person that's working on the edges was one of the key learnings. Because, and I'm opinionated, I speak my mind, I know there's not much to lose by just throwing out an idea. And I think, like, even if you feel like you're pretty veteran and you can kind of spreadsheet something out and say, like, I think this framework's going to work, like, I think what'll really set you apart in your career long term is, rather than like getting your work done and then being like, hey, this broader, higher level point about the game, can we talk about this? Like, take your opportunity to just like further the thought on what you're working on as much as possible. Because when you don't want to be the person who, 12 years later is like, well, I said that the bacon gun should be, blah, blah, blah. And like have that cool anecdote about impact you ultimately didn't have. Like, you want to be I designed the weapon systems, I designed the maps for Black Ops 2. And people be like, those maps were awesome. Good job. Like,
I love both of those positions though, because in one it's like you got to give them the experience, and in the other the community gets to be seen where it's like I agree, yeah, see, even the designer thought the bacon gun should have thrown out 3 strips. It wasn't just me. I knew it.
Yeah, and I guess like do both, but focus on like
Sure,
honing
you always
the
want to
one
get
thing.
like the product out, but like when if it's not working out, you can at least be like, guys, I'm with you. I also wanted 3 strips. I knew 2 wasn't enough. No sé, sabía que no te iba a llenar, pero I just, mano, the creative director said there was no filibuster. I was the only one of a group of 7. Only one person talked. Imagínate si el otro te habla. Así es la vida.
Sin nadie habla.
That's fantastic.
So like I don't know. I think I've definitely embraced like be the one that's hanging the hat on what did happen and that you did really well instead of the what could have been, because oof, the what could have been, it's like some projects just shouldn't have been. But they are, and some people enjoyed them.
That's the least you can hope for. It's just like this. I'm not a fan that I made this, but like someone likes it, so it's net zero. I'll take it. I'll move on. Learnings has been taken. Let's go to the other thing. Let's go a little bit because we have, I think, a couple minutes, like 10 minutes left. So I want to get a little bit into like the game's production management side of it. So it's like you said that they're kind of similar, or like that at least in your current role they kind of do the same thing. Like, what are some of the differences that you're seeing?
Um, first of all, like games product management is not a well-defined term. Like I definitely know that there are some places where it just means that you're going to be essentially pushing data through a tool to do a server update, and you're going to be running the live events and making sure that that tournament is ready for the weekend, that the offer, that the push notifications are all in, that I think that that's kind of where a lot of PMs start out in games. And then I think that there's also the performance side that a lot of companies hinge the capability on, where you're forecasting out how many players are we going to have on this day, what percentage you're going to do this feature, what percentage you're going to spend, how much are we going to make, and then like doing the post-mortems on why did this event work, why did this event not work. And so that's a lot of when you think about a tenured product, that's what a PM is mostly doing. So Pokemon Go Fest happens.
You're the person to go like, all right, guys, these are the metrics. You're the one that goes like, guys, good news, or guys, bad news. Not a good idea, or it was a good idea. We should do more of these.
Yeah, or even more specifically, it's like the people that got our intended result. I think the cool part is, what was the experience that got them there? Like, were they playing with a friend? Were they, did they have this specific lineup? Like, was it better for players that were max level or for players that were more mid? And kind of getting into the behavior. Because I think like a big misconception when people say that you work with a lot of data is that you're like segmenting people out based on their demographics. But PM in games is all about segmenting based on people's behavior and, making certain collection decisions, certain gameplay decisions, certain resource spend decisions. Who they are as people matters little, as long as they have a phone. What they do with the phone is where the capability lives. And then I think like what I now am getting a lot of fulfillment out of is the production side of things as well. I think as you're later in a PM career, you're starting to give more input on it's important that we have this feature by this point, and collaborating with production to lay out the team's plan. And I'm seeing more and more that, well, the companies that are free to play native, like product management kind of rules. And I'll say that Scopely is that kind of place. Whereas the places that are a little bit softer on monetization, or the people that's the places that started out with more of a console PC production standpoint, that it's more of a collaboration, and that usually there still will be, the executive producer, the creative director, and then the PM is usually a third piece of that, which usually it's these more creative types who are like, spreadsheet guy should go talk to the finance people and explain why we need more budget to make this game. Or in a very early scenario, basically like taking a creative person's idea and putting it through the business ringer of, okay, what's the
I like this
differentiator?
idea, but is this viable?
Yeah, because you're kind of trying to crush someone's dream early before it grows up.
Yeah.
Because
Oh
that's
my
the
God.
lens that investors are going to
Yeah.
look through. It's like,
So brutal.
are we going to greenlight this project that we're going to spend $20 million on?
Yeah.
And so it's tough, like, because you want to see it succeed, especially if you're personally into the project, but you also want to give someone a path where they have enough business buy-in that they're not going to have to be like scraping and making sacrifices along the way, that the people with the money have enough confidence in their vision that they'll just let them run free Kojima style. That's my goal. But
that is the goal. So then I want to, there's one question in chat that I want to get to before we reach the end. It's like that someone asked, because I have my own things that I want to like get to, and we only have 5 minutes left. So that question was like, who would you target the most though? The higher ranks, since they usually are more likely to spend money on the game, or the lower level, since you want to bring them more into becoming a mid higher rank? So that's more of like a user acquisition or user focus question.
yeah, I mean, I think that you have to kind of meet the strategy for where the game is. I think that there are plenty of games that they actually have a mix of events or strategies to say, basically, like, these really tenured players, we want to make sure that they still have room to grow or spend. And then I think that you can never stop optimizing your early player experience. Like, if you are trying to grow a game, like, the easiest way to do it is to demonstrate that you're making a positive return on the investment of spending on ad dollars, so you get more ad dollars to bring players in. God help you if you don't get that investment again. So you got to make sure that that early player experience continues getting better, because otherwise it's big dollar signs
That you're
that
losing.
you're going to lose. And those elder players are hopefully covering it. But
Yep. There's another question here that I think is, a lot of people tend to have this kind of question where it's like they're already in one, like, and you've experienced it, where it's you were in one industry and then you were like, all right, let me move over. And so they're asking for any kind of like tips or recommendations for that kind of like what to look for that kind of transition. And this one specifically by Dark Moon Sama is asking like more of like for that producer or product manager role.
yeah, I'd say, like, start doing research in the form of having like informational interviews with people who are doing as close to what you want to do as possible. So I think it's also important, like, help yourself figure out exactly what you want to be doing, because PM and producer are pretty different, depending on where you're at. So, like, find someone who knows someone, or message randos on LinkedIn or from studios talent pages, and just say, like, hey, I'm, not looking for a job immediately, but would love to hear just how your experience in the industry's been. And then take the experience that you have, what you feel you're good at and can demonstrate some success, and kind of, come up with a narrative to say, I've been doing this stuff. It's really similar to what you have outlined in this job posting, what I've talked to other people in the industry doing the job say it requires, and I have the experience. Worst case, you build up some network. But I'd say, like, big thing is be kind of humble when you're going into those informational interviews. And like all stages in career, take that learning mentality, because it's a fun job because you get to learn. And Yeah, when you're starting out, definitely take that learning mentality, but craft a narrative and reach out to people.
I love that kind of idea of crafting a narrative, of just going like this. I could not hear myself for a second, so I was very confused. The the idea of building a narrative of yourself and just going like, well, what's the next stage of my story? And then like, how do I sell like what I've done so far as like I can do this? It's not 1-to-1, but it's like it's 0.8-to-1. So frankly, that's good enough.
Mhm.
Don't worry about it. Like I can cover
Few
the other
recruiters
0.2.
are looking for the full gamut.
Yeah.
And then
They
the
rarely
other
will find it.
thing, just to add on, like communicate your passion. Like I'm not the skills only super professional resume type. Like it's the games industry. Like I've seen people transition to PM because they had a cool voice acting role on
Ooh.
Hades, something like that.
What? That's insane. That's so cool.
Like, yeah, just let your nerd flag fly. It won't hurt in games, I promise.
Alrighty. Gabi, it has been fantastic. We're getting close to the end. And so I want to ask you just one simple question. I usually ask for 3. I'm going to ask for 2 because time is running out. What are your top 2 favorite games? There doesn't need to be a 1 or 2. Just like, who are those at the top that you really like? That's my stuff.
All right. I will say that Grand Theft Auto 5 is just a mind blower. Like I
Ooh.
dream in that game. And it's honestly probably not even my top hours played game. But just what a world they built. And then I gotta say, like, I play Clash Royale so much, and it's like foundation of relationships. And I frankly just, can play it in my sleep. I think that Supercell again, builds really small, intricate things that really resonate strongly with an audience.
I am not surprised in the slightest that that the guy with the economics major or masters
Major, yeah, undergrad.
with the economics major going like, Supercell games. That's mine. It's just like Clash Royale is going like, I'm gonna manage my economy so much better than you that like you just won't be able to win. Like I'm getting Hearthstone and TFT flashbacks of just like
Yeah,
you're beating me on the curve. Like you're out econing me. So by the time that we actually get to stage 4, you're already like still at 100 health and 50 gold. What is going on?
yeah. I love the simplicity of the economy, the strength of the economy, but I also love like I gotta have a little skill. I can't play a straight, build a strong deck and you will win. I need to have some skill and moment to moment fun. That's where I think Supercell is special.
You need to be able to flex on them, where it's just like, I'm not beating you just because I'm an economics major. I'm beating you because I'm better than you and because I have an
Yeah,
economics major.
exactly.
Pues Gaby, ha sido un placer. Thank you so much for being here.
Igualmente, gracias.
Claro, claro. Mi gente, estamos aquí para todo lo que se necesita. The PRGDA, please go to our website, go to our all social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. There we go. How was the last one? I almost said TikTok, but no, not yet. And then we have, depending on what happens in the United States, maybe not ever. We also have, please go to our website if you're a game developer, if you're a studio, and also go to our Patreon. So that way you can like ofrece 5 pesitos, un pesito, lo que puedas, ayuda a contribuir a mejorar al PRGDA and give you more opportunities, not just job opportunities, but also just opportunities like this where you get to talk with Gabriel and Gabriel when it comes to like game development, hear the story of someone that's been a veteran in the industry. So with that, we're gonna bring in the music. Gabriel, thank you so much for being here. Thank you everyone for participating and seeing this little fireside chat. Everyone, say hello. ¿Cómo se dice? Say hi. No, it's like bring your blessings. There we go. A Coraris and a Samuel, they weren't able to be here, but we still like appreciate them being willing to be a part of this. Bring the music in. I like bring it a little bit louder. I'm like, yeah, there we go. Thank you. Woo! All right.
All right.
Let's
Gabriel,
go.
gracias. Bye.